I need to go back further. Way further. Because the story of how I became the family ATM doesn't start when I turned 18. It starts when I was 8 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with a calculator my grandfather had given me for being such a smart little cookie, trying to figure out why my mom looked so sad when she opened the mail. My mom, Patricia, is a master of the unspoken expectation. She never asked for help outright, that would be too direct, too easy to refuse. Instead, she would sigh heavily over bills. She would mention in passing that Mark needed new cleats for football and she just didn't know how she was going to manage it. She would look at me with those tired eyes and say, "You're so good at math, sweetie. You get that from your father's side." It was a compliment wrapped in a guilt trip, and I swallowed it every single time. Mark is 5 years older than me. When I was 8, he was 13, and he had already perfected the art of existing in our house without actually contributing to it. He played football, baseball, and basketball, not because he loved them, but because sports kept him out of the house and gave my mom something to brag about at her church group. She would sit in the bleachers at his games, wrapped in a blanket even in mild weather because she got cold easily, and she would accept the compliments from other parents about what a dedicated mother she was. Mark would score a touchdown and she'd cry. I'd get straight A's on my report card and she'd say, "That's nice, honey. Can you help Lily with her homework? She's struggling." Lily is 4 years younger than me. She was the baby, and she learned early that being helpless was the fastest way to get our mother's attention. She would forget to do her chores and my mom would do them for her, sighing about how Lily was just so creative and scatterbrained, "Not like you, you're so focused." Lily would lose her backpack and my mom would buy her a new one. I lost my library book once, and my mom made me pay for it with my allowance for 3 months, teaching me a lesson about responsibility that Lily never had to learn. My dad, Richard, was a ghost in our house. He worked long hours as a warehouse supervisor, and when he was home, he was usually in the garage tinkering with his motorcycle or watching sports in the basement. He and my mom had this unspoken agreement that she ran the household and he provided the paycheck, and neither of them ever crossed into the other's territory. He never defended me when my mom criticized me, but he never joined in either. He just wasn't there. Still isn't, really. He sends me a birthday card every year with a $20 bill inside, and that's the extent of our relationship. I was the weird kid. The one who read during recess, who finished her math worksheets early and asked for harder ones, who corrected the teacher when she made a mistake on the board. I didn't have many friends, and the ones I did have were other weird kids who also preferred books to people. My mom would drop me off at school and say, "Try to be normal today, okay? Maybe talk to some of the girls in your class. You'd be prettier if you smiled more." I was 9. When I was 11, I started babysitting for neighbors. It was the first time I realized that money meant control. I could buy my own school supplies instead of using the cheap ones my mom bought at the dollar store. I could buy myself a birthday present and wrap it myself so there would be something under the tree for me. I could put cash in a shoebox under my bed and know that if something went wrong, if I needed to escape, I had a tiny bit of power. My mom found the shoebox when I was 12. She was cleaning my room, which really meant going through my stuff under the guise of helping me organize. She sat on my bed with the box in her lap, counting the money while I stood in the doorway, my heart pounding. "Where did you get all this?" she asked, not looking at me. "Babysitting. Chores for Mrs. Henderson. I've been saving for a year." She nodded slowly, then looked up at me with an expression I couldn't read. "You're so responsible," she said. "That's good. You're going to need that." She put the box back and left, and I never knew what to make of that moment until years later. She was already planning. Already seeing me as the solution to problems she hadn't even told me about yet. High school was a special kind of hell. I wasn't popular, but I wasn't bullied either. I was just invisible, which was its own form of isolation. I threw myself into schoolwork because it was the only thing I was good at, the only thing that made sense. A plus B equals C, hard work plus good grades equals scholarships. Scholarships equals escape. I had it all figured out. My mom had other plans. When I was 16, she sat me down and explained that I needed to get a real job instead of just babysitting. "You're old enough to work at the grocery store or something," she said. "You can help out with your own expenses." Mark did it when he was your age. Mark had worked at a pizza place for exactly 3 months before quitting because it interfered with his social life, and my mom had never made him go back. But I didn't point that out. I just nodded and applied to every place within walking distance. I got hired at a small local diner as a hostess. Minimum wage, cash tips, terrible hours. I worked Friday nights and all day Saturday and Sunday. My mom took $50 from my first paycheck for room and board. She took $50 from every paycheck after that, too. I was 16. I didn't know I could say no. Lily, meanwhile, was 15 and had never worked a day in her life. She would come into my room while I was doing homework after a double shift and complain about how bored she was, how she wished she had money to go to the mall with her friends. I once offered to take her shopping with some of my tips, and she looked at me like I'd offered her a moldy sandwich. "Ew, no, I don't want your weird diner money. I want Mom to get me a new phone." Senior year, I got accepted to a state school with a decent academic scholarship. It wasn't my dream school. I'd had my heart set on a small liberal arts college 3 hours away, but it was affordable, and I could live on campus and finally get out of that house. My mom came into my room the night I got the acceptance letter. She sat on the edge of my bed, and for a moment, she looked almost vulnerable. "I'm proud of you," she said. "You've worked so hard." I waited for the but. It always came. "But I don't know how we're going to manage without your help. The room and board money, the babysitting money you give me for Lily when I have to work late, it adds up. I've been counting on it." I was 17. I had been giving her money for over a year. And she was already telling me that my escape was going to hurt her. "I can still help," I said, because I was 17 and I still believed that if I was good enough, if I gave enough, she would finally love me the way she loved Mark and Lily. "I'll work during breaks. I'll send money when I can." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I know you will. You're the responsible one." I didn't see the trap. I walked right into it with my eyes wide open. The summer before college, I worked 60-hour weeks. Diner during the day, babysitting at night, a weekend shift at a retail store. I saved every penny I could, hiding most of it in a new account my dad had quietly helped me open, the only thing he ever did that felt like protection. "Don't tell your mother," he'd said when he drove me to the bank. "She doesn't need to know about everything." I started college that fall, and for one glorious semester, I was free. I lived in a dorm with a roommate who talked in her sleep and played bad music, and I loved every second of it. I called my mom once a week, sent her $100 from my work-study job every month, and pretended that everything was fine. Then winter break happened. I came home to find that my room had been turned into a storage space. My bed was pushed against the wall, covered in boxes of Christmas decorations. My desk was buried under Lily's old art projects. My books were stacked in the corner. "What is this?" I asked, standing in the doorway. My mom came up behind me. "Oh, we needed the space. Lily's been using your closet for her winter clothes. You don't mind, do you? It's only for a few weeks." I minded. I minded so much that I could feel it in my teeth. But I said nothing. I cleared off my bed, shoved the boxes aside, and spent the next 3 weeks sleeping in a room that wasn't mine anymore. That was the first time I understood that I didn't have a home. I had a place I was allowed to stay, as long as I was useful. I went back to school after break and threw myself into my classes. I declared a major in accounting, practical, employable, boring. My classmates made jokes about spreadsheets and tax season. I made spreadsheets for fun. It was the only way I knew how to impose order on a world that had never made sense to me. I came home for spring break and found that my mom had temporarily borrowed $200 from my savings account, the one she technically had access to from when she opened it for me at 15. She paid me back, but only after I asked. Twice. I came home for the summer and worked 3 jobs while my mom complained that I was never around to help with Lily. I went back for sophomore year and stopped calling every week. I started calling every other week. Then once a month. And then, 3 weeks before my 18th birthday, I got a call from my mom. "I need to talk to you about something," she said. Her voice had that tight quality it got when she was about to ask for something. "When you come home for your birthday, we need to discuss your living situation." I should have known. I should have seen it coming. But I was 18 in 3 weeks. I was an adult. I thought that meant something. It didn't. The day after my birthday, she sat me down with her list. Rent. Utilities. Her car payment. Groceries. She calculated it all out, down to the penny. "You're an adult now," she said, sliding the paper across the table. "And we all need to pull our weight. Mark and Lily help in other ways, but since you have a steady income, this is how you can contribute." I looked at the numbers. It was more than half my paycheck. It was more than I'd paid in room and board during high school. It was more than I'd ever imagined handing over. "What about Mark?" I asked. "He makes way more than me. Why isn't he contributing?" My mom's face tightened. "Mark has expenses. He has a car payment, a girlfriend, a social life. He needs his money. You've always been so good at saving. This shouldn't be a problem for you." "And Lily?" "Lily is still in school. She's focusing on her education. We don't want to burden her." I looked at the paper. I looked at my mom's face, waiting for me to argue so she could tell me how selfish I was, how ungrateful, how she'd sacrificed everything for me, and this was the thanks she got. I didn't argue. I nodded. I said okay. And that's how it started. The next 4 years were a blur of work and exhaustion and the slow, grinding erosion of my sense of self. I transferred to a community college near home so I could save money, which really meant so I could be available to drive Lily to school when she missed the bus, to pick up groceries on my way home from class, to be home in time to make dinner because my mom had a headache. I got promoted at the dental office from receptionist to office manager. My salary increased. My contributions increased right along with it. My mom never asked. She just started sending me the bills with a sticky note. "Can you take care of this by Friday? Thanks, love you." I paid for a new roof. I paid for a new water heater. I paid for Lily's community college tuition when she forgot to apply for financial aid. I paid for Mark's engagement party, because my mom wanted to throw him something nice and I was so good at planning things. I became the family secretary, the family chauffeur, the family bank. And the whole time, I was the weird one. The difficult one. The one who thought she was better than everyone because she used big words and didn't watch reality TV. Mark got married. I wasn't invited to the bachelor party, but I was expected to contribute to the honeymoon fund. Mark's wife, Stephanie, is a nice woman, too nice, the kind of nice that makes you wonder what she's really thinking. She tried to befriend me at the wedding, asking about my job, my life, if I was seeing anyone. I didn't know how to talk to her. I'd forgotten how to talk to people who weren't asking me for money. Lily dropped out of community college for the 3rd time and announced she was going to be an influencer. My mom bought her a new camera and a ring light. I paid for her branding workshop. I started having panic attacks in my car. I'd pull into the driveway after work and just sit there, hands gripping the steering wheel, heart racing, unable to make myself go inside. I'd sit for 10, 15, 20 minutes, staring at the front door, trying to summon the energy to walk through it. One night, my dad came out to the car. He knocked on the window, and when I rolled it down, he just stood there for a moment, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. "You know you don't have to stay here," he said quietly. "You're an adult. You can leave." I laughed, and it came out broken. "Leave? Dad, I'm paying the mortgage. If I leave, they lose the house." He shrugged. "Not your problem." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that I could just walk away, that none of it was my responsibility. But I'd been responsible for so long that I didn't know how to be anything else. "I can't," I said. He nodded, like he'd expected that answer. Well. When you're ready. He patted the roof of the car and went back inside. That was a year before the kitchen table meeting. A year before my birthday eviction. A year before I finally learned that my dad was right. I think about that moment a lot now. I think about how close I came to breaking, how I was sitting in that car with the engine running, literally unable to move, and he saw me. He saw me and he told me the truth, and I wasn't ready to hear it. But I was ready when it mattered. I was ready when they sat me down and told me I had to leave. I was ready when I walked back into that house after 4 years of being their personal ATM and systematically dismantled every financial support I'd been providing. I was ready when I walked out that door with my mom screaming behind me, when I blocked their numbers, when I found my tiny apartment and filled it with books and plants and things that were mine, only mine. I still have nightmares sometimes. I dream that I'm back in that house, sitting at the kitchen table, and my mom is sliding bill after bill across to me, and I can't stop paying them. I wake up sweating, heart pounding, and then I look around my dark little bedroom and remember that I'm free. I'm free and they can't touch me. My dad calls sometimes. We have awkward conversations about the weather and his motorcycle. He never asks for money. He never asks about my mom. I think he understands, in his own way, that he failed me too. But he's the only one who ever told me I could leave, so I keep the line open. Last month, I got a letter from Lily. Real paper, real envelope, my address written in her loopy handwriting. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. It was short. She said she was sorry. She said she didn't understand what was happening at the time, that she was just a kid, that our mom had always told her I was the lucky one because I was smart and didn't need anyone. She said she was in therapy now. She asked if we could get coffee sometime. I haven't answered. I don't know if I will. Part of me wants to, the part that still remembers teaching her to ride a bike, reading her bedtime stories, letting her crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. But another part of me remembers her sitting at that table, looking at her phone, not saying a word while my mom told me I had to leave. She was 21. Not a kid. Old enough to know better. Maybe someday. Not today. For now, I'm okay.